Thank you all for a wonderful discussion. We had some viewpoints put forth very beautifully, which point out the pros and cons of each of those things. As has been pointed out, we really need them all in different combinations and with the right kind of atmosphere for each of them. So I'll be speaking today on the lecture skills, and I'm sure you all have done it more than me, and you can do it better than me, but we all need to pool our points of what we think works best for us. We learn it as we go along. So the objective of this talk is to prepare the audience to be effective and powerful speakers and communicators with their learners. So how do you go about giving an effective lecture? You need to be well prepared. You need to tailor your talk to the level of the audience and prepare yourself for that particular audience. You need to maintain your focus on exactly what you want to communicate. You need to engage your audience in your talk. You need to be getting all kinds of feedbacks, which are during the talk, you look at the audience response, and subsequent feedback from them regarding how you can improve your subsequent talks. And you need to therefore modify your way of giving talks. Most important is to be prepared and not to be found napping like me. Last evening, I received an email from Partho saying that these are your subjects in this teacher's session. And I found that I had missed this in the program book. So this was not in my list of things I had prepared. That was about 10 p.m. So he said, you have to give a talk. I said, I can't. And he said, no, you can. So I had to prepare this from 10 in the night. I slept and then started in the morning. So I was not as well prepared as I should be. Okay, so how do you get prepared for a lecture? You must outline very clear objectives of what that talk is going to communicate about, and you must also be able to emphasize its importance to the audience. This we have already said, it should be tailored to the nature of the audience. If I'm talking to postgraduates, it has to be a different level. If I'm talking to teachers, it has to be a different level. And if I'm speaking in an international conference, it will be at a different level. So always develop an outline and prepare the audio visuals as necessary. This goes without saying. And if I'm a beginner and I'm a little nervous, it is best to know what first 4 lines I'm going to speak by the time I get my bearings. So, but it is always important in a lecture to have only a few limited points that you can communicate in an 8-minute or 10-minute or a 20-minute talk. If you go on to too many things, you can't really communicate the carry-home points. And you must communicate using examples, analogies, visuals, so as to have the thing sink in. This is very important. Like, for example, if you're talking about nystagmus, it is ideal to have a video at the same time. You should limit your words or text to the minimum possible. If a figure can communicate it, the same thing, you can see how much better the focus will be when you point out on this rather than on this slide. And figures, charts, graphs are always an effective communicator, provided you can focus on the right thing to the audience. And having a good clarity of thoughts is vital. We'll emphasize some of these points further. So what are the things that a teacher needs to have an effective lecture? He needs to have a good knowledge. He needs to have skills in teaching. But at the same time, having a positive attitude, positive disposition towards the job is very important, vital. So you need to emphasize your key points in the beginning so that the audience gets focused to what is coming during the course of the talk when you talk on individual subjects, and at the end in the form of a summary. It is important to bring the audience round to your talk, to bring them to have your attention. And that is by putting in a quote or a dramatic visual in the beginning, or an anecdote, or talking about Parthaviswas and not having known the subject, or something like that. Integrate your visuals with your talk subject very well, and wherever possible, in smaller groups, you can have them divided into groups to discuss specific things, and have peers communicate to each other on things. But these are only in limited situations where you have a longer format. It is always very useful when you're talking about a subject to integrate it with what the audience already knows. So if you have discussed something in the previous lecture, or if there is some experience that they've had, if you can link it to that, it's much easier for them to integrate that. You need to be enthusiastic about your subject, you need to feel involved, and you need to have the audience involved. And therefore, appropriate voice modulation for emphasis, correct pauses are all very important. Eye contact is important, not a general eye contact, but specific contact with a few people lasting 4-5 seconds is important in communication. It has to be paced in a way that the audience can grasp. If it is too rapid, if we are flitting from subjects to the one subject to the other, again the effectivity will go down. Give the audience the time to think of what you have said, and be at that pace. The feedback that you get during the lecture is by various non-verbal communications, whether people are taking notes, whether they are taking pictures, whether they are responding when you say something, whether they show a response to your humor. So all those things tell you that you have the audience in your attention span, and you also need to keep your timing to a level where the attention span is maintained and not go on and on. So also it is important to get feedback by asking questions. Like at the end of the day, you could ask your audience, what was it that was most important to you? What was it that you did not get? What was it that confused you? And things like that. If you can get that kind of feedback, it is vital for your going forward for further lectures. Periodically keep asking about things, but not about minutiae, but about the broader aspects of what the objectives of the talk were. So to summarize, for an effective talk, it is important to have it tailored to the audience that you are addressing. Keep the subject and material focused to the objective. If you deviate, you lose the audience. Prepare well, unlike me. Structure well with clear objectives which are pointed out at the beginning, correlated well during the subject matter, and summarized at the end. Make sure your audience is engaged in the lecture. And feedback and acting on the feedback is critical to success. Ending with an image of Antarctica. Look at the beautiful ice and the penguins. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. It didn't look like it has been made overnight. Thanks a lot. So.